Welcome to the Leader Lifestyle Podcast, where we believe every person can achieve their life goals as a result of their work, not in spite of it. We talk to top performers and learn their daily routines, behaviors, and beliefs so you can improve your health, maximize your work performance, and above all, ensure you and your entire team are achieving a better life as a result of working for your company. Today, we've got a pretty special episode. I'm going through a number of books that have impacted my life in a positive way. There's not many. I think we've got about 10 to 15, and I read 2 to 5 books every single month and have done for the past decade. So there's a ton of books that we could talk about, but these are special because they've actually changed my behavior. And I'm really excited to get into this first book. And if you haven't read it, you definitely should. I'm going to read out a few quotes, a few kind of interesting sentences, and then explain really how it's impacted me and how I think that you could apply it to your life. So the first book is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, a counterintuitive approach to living a good life by Mark Manson. So just the title, Not Giving a Fuck, it makes it stand out because it's not apologetic in its approach, but I misunderstood this. I've read it 3 times so far, and I've got it on audiobook, and I've probably listened to it between 5 and 10 times as I'm driving about. Little chapters and things stand out. And the first time I read it, what I thought it should be, how I thought it could be applied to my life, is that I stopped giving a fuck about what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, and everything. Just care less about life. And that's a good place to start, but you start becoming too lethargic and too lazy. And then as I reread it, the actual lesson is so profound and deep that it's sunk in that it shouldn't be about not giving a fuck in all spheres of life and in all parts of an equation, if you like, but instead don't prejudge, don't pre-guess how something is going to turn out. If it's important to you, then do it. Don't give a fuck is removing obstacles. So once you read this book, once you absorb it, you start to remove obstacles to your own actions. You already know what you need to do to become fitter, healthier, a better leader, work harder, become more creative. But the question is, why aren't you doing it? And I think this book really succinctly explains and discusses that. So I've separated it up into a number of different values, and then I've got a sentence or 2 sentences for each. And then I'll kind of discuss my thoughts on it, basically. So let's jump straight in. Apathy. Quote from the book. Notice how it's often the person who is the least invested in the success of something that actually ends up achieving it. So for me, how I've actually applied it, like I said, was initially being apathetic about everything in life. But the first time I was on video is probably a good way of describing it. It was 11 years ago. I just set up my gym and I was starting to do some content on how you could be a fitter and stronger rugby player. And it was extremely difficult to turn the camera, speak in front of it. And I felt really self-conscious, basically. So what I discovered was when I loosen up and I don't care about, what people are going to think about me or what I'm saying, it was actually better. And I came across less robotic, which actually ended up making a better product for the viewer. So being less invested in the success of every video I was going to make actually helped me achieve creating a better video, if that makes sense. Another example is if you go on a date with someone, if you're less needy, if you show that you don't care whether they want you or not, they're actually going to want you more. Being less needy is always good. So how you can actually apply this is do the things that you're scared of doing. Not trying less hard, but actually care less hard about the outcome of the work. Okay, so do not be scared of doing the actions. Actually do it. Give less fucks about doing it. Give less fucks about the outcome. But it doesn't mean that you give less fucks about your goal or try less hard. And that's the first mistake I made from the first read of this book. The actual not giving a fuck bit is on your own actions and what other people are going to think or what even the outcome is. Next one, problems. Back to the book. To be happy, we need something to solve. Happiness is therefore a form of action. It doesn't magically appear when you finally make enough money to add on that extra room to the house. True happiness occurs only when you find the problems you enjoy having and enjoy solving. So my view on this is that problems are challenges, and a big challenge will inspire you and it's going to make you step up. You need a challenge, you need something to solve. And life for me is fucking empty if I don't have that. Like, I really will be lazy. I'll eat crap, I'll binge eat, I'll drink alcohol if I'm not challenged through sport or through a big physical challenge. And then with my business, if I don't feel like I've got big, scary goals, then I'm not going to wake up motivated. I'm not going to go to bed and think about what I'm going to do the next day. I just end up going through the motions. And it makes me comfortable. And comfort is deadly in that, you know, what you're doing in life that is meaningful and that you'll remember in 10, 20 years time is the stuff that challenges you right now and what is an obstacle right now. So what are you doing in life that is making you comfortable? Start to become aware of those things where you're making excuses or you're unaware of how you're actually behaving. And talking to other people and having a coach can be a big step up in this area. But what you need is someone, whether it's your partner or a really good friend, to tell you where you fucking being a little bitch, basically, to tell you when you could actually do something and you're telling yourself that you can't. Comfort is deadly, so move away from that. And how you can apply this is set a scary, challenging goal for yourself and break it down into micro steps. Enough's been done about that. Don't think we need to dig into how to set goals or how to break them down, but then remove comfort. So if you've seen Rocky 4, Rocky is training to go and beat Ivan Drago, and he goes out to Siberia somewhere and he's training alone in a shed in the snow with shit equipment, absolute Spartan mindset of just remove everything that's comfortable and focus solely on the goal. Because if you make your life really comfortable and make it kind of linked to material things like Netflix or having a really comfortable, luxurious car or eating only the finest foods, you start to crave those things, and it separates your mind from the challenge of actual physical hard work or actual mental hard work and creativity. And basically, you will then become weaker and not successful. You have to remove the comfort and move towards challenge, move away from comfort, move towards scariness, move away from comfort and move towards your goals. Okay. So true happiness occurs only when you find the problems you enjoy having and enjoy solving. So obviously there's a happiness equation in there. Next value, inadequacy. A fixation on happiness inevitably amounts to a never-ending pursuit of something else. A new house, a new relationship, another child, another pay rise. And despite all of our sweat and strain, we end up feeling eerily similar to how we started, inadequate. So my points on this, if you're fantasizing about the future, it builds up this picture in your mind of how you'll feel when you get there. But when you actually get there, it's never the same as you made it out to be in your mind. And our language actually supports this. We say things like, I've made it, or I've arrived, or, oh my God, you've made it, or yeah, you finally arrived. And this does a couple of things that are really negative. Number one, it undermines where you are in this moment. If you've not made it yet, then that's undermining where you are right now. And it overpromises the future and sets you up for disappointment. Like if you're expecting this future to be incredibly meaningful and exciting and everyone's going to love you and give you loads of accolades when you get there, when you actually get there and no one gives a fuck and it feels the same as you did, let's say if you were driving a shit car and then you work really hard and you make more money and you get a really nice car, actually after the novelty wears off, it feels the same. So action is key. Acceptance is key. Take actions and definitely work towards becoming a better self, but accept that where you are right now is okay. And that's where the Stoic mindset can be beneficial. I've said previously that, I'm an emotional person. I like expressing my emotions and talking about it. And so the Stoic mindset helps me sometimes, but it can also make me avoid things. But in this sense, be stoic in that where you are right now is fine. It's not what you've got. It's not where you live. It's not material stuff. It's not money. It's what you're doing. It's, are you doing things that you're finding meaningful? Are you being challenged? Problems are challenges, like we just said. So how you can apply this is be less materialistic. Focus on experiences. Focus on hanging out with your friends, having a better relationship with your partner, and focus on your own behavior. You know, be more cheerful. Be more determined and move towards, I guess, better daily behavior rather than putting off this kind of vision of who you're going to become, because you'll end up feeling inadequate now and when you get there. Next one is pain. People want to start their own business, but you don't end up a successful entrepreneur unless you find a way to appreciate the risk, the uncertainty, the repeated failures, the insane hours devoted to something that may earn absolutely nothing. So my points on this doesn't have to just be business. This could be any project where failure massively impacts your life in a negative way. And you've got to appreciate the risk and uncertainty by realizing that you're choosing a different path to everyone else. You're going to achieve what they won't. And that is painful because from personal experience, a lot of my friends have their own house and they have kids and they're married. And I've put all of those things off to focus completely on my business. And I'm at a point now where I've got loads of free time. I'm starting to make some money. And if there was a graph of success, I would have achieved nothing for a decade. And then suddenly everything's coming all at once for me. Does that make sense? But for my friends, there was a gradual rise. So for years and years and years, I'd see all my friends' lives kind of improving, if you like, materialistically, that is, whilst my own was staying very much the same. And it's extremely painful, but that is how you make extreme progress and big change in your life. You've got to kind of put comfort last and put pain first. As they say, make friends with pain and you'll never be alone. And you've got to be a little bit insane to imagine something that doesn't exist and visualize that and know for certain that thing is going to happen and act towards it every single day, despite setbacks, despite not seeing any progress, and despite perhaps not even making that thing occur and being successful in that thing in your life ever. So how to apply this then, how to apply kind of embracing pain is set goals for your future self. Who do you want to be? How would you act in that capacity when you do get there? And make daily habits to act like that now. Process-oriented stuff is really key here. For example, training is a great example. If you want to run a marathon, but you can only run 2 miles now, or you want to run a marathon in a certain time and you're, 10, 20, 30, 60 minutes off that time now, then you've got a clear goal. And all you have to do is take the smallest step towards improving your behavior now. You don't put it off. You start doing it now. You start being honest with yourself now as to where you are. Stop avoiding things and micro test different parts of the project wherever you can. If it's a business, for example, you can get early validation. If it's a fitness program, you can do fitness tests. You've got to get that to see if the direction you're going in is correct, but also for your own motivation. You can be motivated and you can get reward through accepting challenge rather than looking forward to comfort. Next value, entitlement. The deeper the pain, the more helpless we feel against our problems, and the more entitlement we adopt to compensate for those problems. This entitlement plays out in one of two ways. Number one, I'm awesome and the rest of you all suck, so I deserve special treatment. Number two, I suck and the rest of you are all awesome, so I deserve special treatment. So basically, there's the same outcome of being entitled. Either you feel like you're better than other people, or you feel like other people are better than you. So in one case, you're being a snotty little brat. In the other case, you're acting like a victim. Both of those are incorrect. And there's a way of applying it. If you are better than other people at something, teach other people how to do it. If you're awesome, teach other people. Focus more of your time on this area. If that's in your job, then help other people develop them. If it's in your family life, like if you're calm and everyone else is a bit stressful, help them, have things in place to help them calm down. And if you suck at something, go and get help. Focus less of your time on that. If it's in your job, if you can do that, if it's in your business, you definitely can do that, and get help from people who can actually do that. So if you're awesome, focus on that area, teach other people. If you suck, go and get help, focus less time in that area. And I think that's something that I didn't do for a very long time. I thought I should be good at everything. And also when it comes to business, I can do everything in my business, but that doesn't mean I should do it. I can do accounts, I can write programs, I can do all the sales calls, I can do all the marketing, but actually it benefits me and my team if I put people in place who are better than me and who have more time to do it. Even if I have more skill, if they have more time and more incentive to do it, then that person needs to be in place. Being bad at something is an opportunity to learn, basically. And you're not going to be able to excel at something that you aren't suited to and that you don't want to do. So turn the entitlement around. You don't deserve special treatment if you're awesome. You need to go and help other people. And you don't deserve special treatment if you're acting like a victim. You need to go and ask for help and change your responsibilities. Next value, comparison. The internet has not just open sourced information, it has also open sourced insecurity, self-doubt, and shame. We cope the only way we know how, either through self-aggrandizing or through other aggrandizing. So, don't know about you guys, I didn't really know what aggrandize meant. So the definition of it is enhance the reputation of someone or something beyond what is justified by the facts. And I think looking at someone's Instagram profile is a great example of this. They're just showing you the highlights. There's the yacht holiday in Croatia. There's them, bench pressing 150 kilograms. There's them with the top off looking good. There's their new house. There's their promotion. There's their new Mercedes. And in your head, you'll start to enhance their reputation. You'll think, oh my God, they must be really clever. They must be extremely wealthy and profitable. They must have so many friends. But actually, they might be lonely. They might have all of that shit on credit. They might be doing really badly at work, even though they got a promotion. They might be actually incompetent and on a performance development plan at work. People don't share boring days or failures or, no one's sharing a picture of a 20-year-old battered Vauxhall Corsa, are they? Everyone feels the pressure of comparison on social media, and showing off is a big motivation for posting on social media. And it's just a case of gaining awareness of that and not necessarily suspecting the worst of people, but don't big them up beyond the actual facts. Because most people are showing off, if you're in a state of low mood or depression, it's not going to help you looking at that stuff either. So you may want to remove yourself from social media or limit it, use a screen time thing on your app, on your phone, or, put your phone in a box. Or what I've started doing is trying to have one day a week where I don't look at my phone. It's really interesting to know how you feel doing that. And kind of side note that's not social media related, but real life. When I was trying to go pro at rugby, I went to Salford Reds and I saw their first team, and I'd watched Salford Reds play Salford Red Devils now, but they were Salford City Reds then. I'd watched them play on Sky Sports since I was about 11, and they seemed like superhuman freak athletes. And when I got to see them in person when I was 20, I'd had 8 years of building them up in my mind, obviously different players, but the same team. But when I got there, they were just blokes. They were just having a laugh, training. They made mistakes. They weren't necessarily the hardest working. Some of them were complaining. I'd made up these kind of Greek gods in my head. And then when I actually got there and started working with them and coaching with them, they were just guys. And I wish that I'd learned that earlier, because I bigged it up so much in my head that I ended up not being able to achieve my goal of becoming a pro rugby player, because I didn't think that I could achieve God status, like I'd put them on a pedestal. And you can't become something you're in awe of. So stop being in awe of people. And I say this to myself all the time. I say it to other people all the time. You can't become something you're in awe of. I'm sure I read this in a Dave Tate article on Elite FTS about powerlifters. you've got to hang around people who are successful and then kind of see their shortcomings and the downsides and realize, you know what, they're actually just a normal person and I can achieve what they can achieve. So I'm going to go and do it. So how you can apply this? Dopamine fast, like I said, no phone for 24 hours once a week. Remove yourself from social media. Notice how you feel during and after this period. It's very interesting. You'll feel like you're missing out on stuff. And when you see someone being successful, realize that it's proof that you can do it too. If you really want to do it, you can. They're just humans. Another point on comparison, back to the book. The question is not whether we evaluate ourselves against others. Rather, the question is, by what standard do we measure ourselves? And in the book, there's two examples. I'm not going to read them out. Excuse me. But he mentions a guitarist called Dave Mustaine who was in Metallica, who got kicked out, and then he founded a band called Megadeth. Now, Metallica are obviously multi-award winning metal band. Megadeth are a great multi-award winning metal band, but Metallica are more successful than Megadeth. And so Dave Mustaine is comparing himself to his previous band that he was kicked out of against his will, Metallica. And he starts to feel really bad because, yes, he's an award-winning musician. Yes, he's in a great rock band, selling out stadiums all around the world. But because he's not as good as Metallica, he ends up feeling pretty shit about himself. In the book, it also mentions Pete Best, who was a drummer for the Beatles. Now, he left the Beatles of his own volition, and he wanted to start a family, get married, have a more wholesome life rather than just being a rock star. But he also got to be in bands, travel Europe, travel the world, playing and rocking out stadiums. He just didn't have the massive adoring fans that the Beatles had in Beatlemania. But Pete Best didn't want that. And so what you've got is two identical situations of two musicians. They're in one band, but the band they left ends up being really, really famous. The first guy, Dave Mustaine, he really makes himself feel like shit because he keeps comparing himself to, someone who's better. But Pete Best, the drummer for the Beatles, actually feels better because he's happy with his family. He's got more free time. He didn't want to be the center of attention anyway. And so he got what he desired. And so this is how comparison can fuck you up. You've got to know what your own values are. And, this is really high level stuff when it comes to values, family, financial freedom, meaningful work, health. What are you putting as your priorities? And then once you know your values, you set your non-negotiables. So for example, Dave Mustaine, who was in Metallica, his non-negotiables were, I need to be the best metal band going. And he couldn't actually live up to that value. And it, probably ruined his mental health. Pete Best, his value was family. And so he was able to have a great family and be a great drummer. So those non-negotiables were actually achievable. You've got to set a vision for your life and create a daily process of achieving it. Stop comparing yourself to others and compare yourself. This is a Jordan Peterson quote. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. So how you can apply this, set your values, and it might take a week of sitting down and journaling and thinking about it. And then set daily habits of the person who's already living that goal. Track the habits, move towards it. This is like repeated advice throughout this episode because it's so important. Once you know your values, you don't have to compare yourself towards other people because you know that you're achieving the life that you want to live, not feeling shit because you're not living someone else's life. Next, the struggle is reality. Constant positivity is a form of avoidance, not a valid solution to life's problems. Problems which, by the way, if you're choosing the right values and metrics, should be invigorating you and motivating you. One day, in retrospect, the years of struggle will strike you as the most beautiful. So this is a complex one. He said constant positivity is a form of avoidance. And I've seen a few things in the media about toxic positivity, about being happy all the time, which is literally this point, right? Feeling like you can't express negative thoughts in the workplace or with your friends, and the leadership in your company or yourself perhaps promoting only positive thoughts. This is toxic positivity because basically you're avoiding problems. Like if something is bad, you've got to admit it's bad, right? Or you can't actually address it. So it's not a valid solution to life's problems to be constantly positive. And if you've got problems, if you've got the right problems, let's say you've got a big client who's got a challenging project, that should invigorate you, that should motivate you, that should be something that you actually want to achieve. And if it isn't, you're in the wrong bloody industry or the wrong job. But deeper than that, it's okay not to be doing all right. And an ironically positive spin on that is, even though things might be shit now, you'll look back with pride once you've overcome it. So don't avoid, realize it's okay to fail or to have challenges, even if you didn't set them up. I'd say a challenge is something that you've kind of accepting, where a problem is something that's set you back, and both are fine. Overcome them. And the problem comes when you get stuck in the it's okay not to be okay mode, because of course it is okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to not do anything about it. And when things are not okay, do something about it. Get help, reframe your thoughts, talk to someone, phone up a friend, phone up someone who's had this problem, phone up your friends and talk to them and tell them how things are going anyway, because sometimes you might notice that things have slipped and you thought you were on the right track, but actually you weren't. And I know that I've been constantly positive myself in the past, and I've stopped watching the news and stopped talking to people who are negative, and I've cut out friends who weren't really positive. But then you realize that you've become an isolated, I realized I became an isolated, lonely person who didn't know what was going on in the world. And it took, years to gain that awareness. Once you gain it, once you realize what your personal problem is or what your business problem is or whatever, take a tiny action, turn it into a challenge and overcome it. A little story about myself. I used to be extremely poor. I worked in a bank, which is like massively ironic that I worked in a bank and I had no money. But I worked in a bank 2 days a week, and I ran my gym out of a storage container when I first started in 2010. I had no money. And when I did get money, I was putting it into this vision of the future where when I achieved working full-time in the gym, I could quit my job at the bank. I'd visualize quitting my job at the bank all the time. I'd daydream about it. And I dream of the time where I was going to be driving a Range Rover, have, 10 gyms and be absolutely balling out. And so when I did get money, when I could quit the bank, I started not budgeting the money that I was making, and I got into debt. I got a car that I couldn't have afforded. I went on holidays all the time. I ended up getting to the end of the year and then had massive tax bills that I hadn't even budgeted for. It was absolute chaos. And I pretended things were fine, and I called it a wealth mindset. I deserve this car. I deserve these holidays. I've got to feel like I'm a baller to actually achieve it. And it was fucking bollocks. And it made me get into a lot of trouble financially and mental health wise doing that. So the way to overcome this, in my opinion, is reframe it. So now I can look back and I've got the lessons of going through that period of my life where I was extremely material and money focused. But I can look back at it and laugh in 10 years' time. That's how you reframe things. If you can look back and laugh about it in 10 years' time, then it's positive, right? It was a charming life experience. And if you can laugh about it now, then that's even better. So that's one of the most powerful ways I reframe negative things in my life is not toxic positivity, not pretending everything's okay, but instead going, right, actually, this is shit. But am I going to laugh about it in 10 years' time once I've overcome it? Yeah. So why not laugh about it now? And let's be cheerful in the face of adversity. Next one, values. What are the values that you prioritize above everything else and that therefore influence your decision-making more than anything else? We spoke about values previously in this episode, but if you don't have values, people are going to force theirs upon you. You've got to have 3 to 5 things that are massively high level that lead to you having a really wholesome and enjoyable, meaningful life and career and social life. And you won't change those things for fucking anybody. Otherwise, people are going to force their things upon you. Like if you've got family time as an important value, then you're not going to work late in the office and be miserable. If you don't have family time as a value, if you don't have any values and your boss says, hey, will you work late on a Friday? And you'll be like, hey, yeah, but then you'll be miserable and you have no family time. So if you aren't prioritizing clear decision-making about your values, then you're going to fail and you're going to wonder why you're failing. And it's because you didn't have any non-negotiables. Non-negotiables tell people who you are. It's your identity. And they allow you to make decisions. So if you don't have the values, basically, you've got no priorities. If you don't have any priorities, you're just going to be kicked about by life. And Carl Jung's got this wicked quote: until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So how can you apply this? Write out your non-negotiables. Look at more time. Make them known to other people. They are who you are. Okay, last couple. Next one's avoidance. The more something threatens your identity, the more you will avoid it. Now, I've seen this all the time. Coach people in the gym with their fitness. Your brain wants to remain the same. You want to keep drinking a glass of wine every night, or keep having ice cream, keep the same routines, keep the same self, keep the same identity of who you are. If someone's always been the fat one with all their friends, and then they start becoming the shredded, strong, muscular, toned one, that's a different identity, right? So this creates a push-pull when you set new goals. You actually want the goal. You've got to change your identity to achieve the goal, but your brain doesn't want you to change your identity, basically. Classic example is someone wins the lottery. They don't have the mindset of a millionaire. They don't have the identity of a millionaire, and they end up blowing all the money, basically. It happens all the time. Another good example is in the military. You have to de-individualize yourself and take on the values of the unit that you're joining, or you don't get to finish training. You don't get to achieve the outcome because you are not taking on the identity of a military operator, right? So how you can apply this is be aware of avoidance. Notice when you start backing off, when you stop getting up early, when you stop training, when you stop eating healthy, when you start going for a Mackey's, when you start sat on your arse all day long. And just be aware of those moments, those magical moments when you could go one way or the other and you decide to go the negative way. That's avoidance. That's when you change, though. That's when you can decide to get back on the path. You either move forwards and achieve the thing, becoming the evolved version of yourself, or you're going to fall back to your previous level of mediocrity. Last one, guys, just to round it up, is living. The fear of death follows from the fear of life. A man who lives fully is prepared to die at any time. And that's a Mark Twain quote that's in the book. Fear of death. The best way I can explain this is how I kind of approach training and business and everything that I do. You won't be able to do something you haven't done before if you're not prepared to have the ultimate sacrifice, which is death. And it sounds ridiculous, but if you're prepared to die for what you believe in, then you're going to be successful and you're not going to die. And even if you do die, who cares anyway? You're not going to care. You're going to be dead. You've got to accept any pain that's about to come your way for the goal you want to achieve is fine, you know, up to and including death. You're totally fine with any negative outcome that can happen. You're going to give your all in those physically demanding situations, mentally demanding situations, because you're totally cool with failure, essentially. That's what that quote means. If you've got a fear of failure, then you won't do anything to achieve success. If you live fully prepared to fail, then you're going to be successful. And it's a weird juxtaposition in ideas, but it's totally true. If you imagine a good example is in rugby, if someone's running towards another person and the tackler kind of starts to get a bit scared that they're going to get hurt in the tackle and pulls out, they are going to get hurt because they're not putting themselves in a strong defensive position. They're basically kind of wincing, pulling out of the tackle, and they're going to get run over, as opposed to going, fuck it, I don't care if I die in this tackle, absolutely smash the other person. Even if they fail, they're probably going to be safe. They're probably going to be okay. So treat that as a metaphor. But in life, look at the risks of failing, visualize them, get accustomed to them, imagine them really happening in your life, talk about with other people, read about what's happened to other people, and then really work on accepting those risks, being comfortable with those risks mentally. And once you're fine with the risks, you become unstoppable. Basically, If you, for example, if you know you're going to be okay if your partner leaves, it means that you're going to be less needy and you're probably going to have a better relationship. If you know you can find another job, if you get fired, it means you'll start being more creative and you're going to push back on shitty behavior from others that's impacting you. Know that you can handle it. And if you know you can handle it, it means you can start integrating with the best person you could possibly be. And that's my summary. Just a few lessons from The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. If you haven't read it, get it, read it. The audiobook's wicked as well. It's really enjoyable. Hope you enjoyed this one, guys. There's loads of other books to come in this series of life-changing books. But that's it for this episode. I'll catch you on the next one.